So, Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to address some of the things that have been said by my colleague. First of all, that it's, maybe not the appropriate place at this particular committee. And I want to again reiterate that the Ethics Committee deals with lobbying. And at the heart of this story, what we're talking about is extensive lobbying from SNC to influence the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, Michael Warnick, to intervene and to go to the former Attorney General to pressure her to change her mind. So lobbying is absolutely within the scope of this committee, and I believe that it really does firmly belong in this committee as a study. Committees may not be the best place to hear this, and I completely agree that the gold standard is the full public independent inquiry. But if the Prime Minister was going to do that, he would have already initiated it. We are seeing clearly that that's not going to happen. If it was going to happen, we'd have it launched. This is 7 weeks of torture for Liberals. Every single day, the story changes and becomes worse. If you truly believe that the Prime Minister wanted to have a full independent public inquiry, we would already see evidence of that. Canadians would already see that. So I agree with you, committees aren't the best place, but it's the only place we currently have. The only place that we have to be able to have a forum to create space for people to be able to speak who very publicly indicated that they would like the opportunity to do so. So it may not be the best, but it's the only option before us right now as parliamentarians. And the other thing I want to talk about is, first of all, before I leave the committees, I have to say that the Justice Committee has been very clear. The study is done. There is no further conversation or study. There have been multiple attempts to bring this back to the Justice Committee that have been voted down by members of the Justice Committee. No one in Canada believes that the Justice Committee is going to revisit that. And I say that as a member of the Justice Committee, as Vice Chair of the Justice Committee. There is absolutely no indication that they will entertain any further conversation. The letter from Ms. Wilson-Raybould to the Justice Committee is very narrow in what it represents. She was asked a direct question by Mr. Rankin during her testimony, and the letter that she has sent is a response to that direct question. It's very limited. I do not believe that we will anticipate some big, long, full statement from her coming to the committee. She has indicated she will provide the text messages and the emails as was requested of her by Mr. Rankin. That is what we can expect to see inside of that communication, if you will. But that communication will land at the Justice Committee and nothing will be done with it. There is no study that indicates that something must be done with it. There is no will towards doing anything with it. It will come, but how meaningful will that be if there's just simply a letter that becomes public? What I think is going to happen is it will raise even more questions than we currently have. So the idea that this letter is going to clear everything up, I think is not the case at all. And I think it's being taken out of context in the spirit that it was delivered. I mean, she even references a report. There's no report. There's no study at Justice Committee, so there's no report to come forward. The Justice Committee is not going to revisit it. I think that Canadians understand that and see that clearly. And as a member of that committee, I'm telling you that I do not believe there will be any further efforts at the Justice Committee in terms of this particular focus. So we land back at Ethics Committee, which is just another space for us to have this study. And it's entirely appropriate. It's entirely appropriate to have that here, regardless of what she may say. And if there isn't an order in council for this committee, then I'm certain that Liberal members can go to the Prime Minister and say, we need an order in council for the Ethics Committee, and we need for you to expand it. Don't limit it in a way where it leaves so many questions unanswered. And you have your own members who are going out publicly and saying, there are things to say beyond this scope. Please let us say them. I think in the interest of fairness, that you should pursue the study here. You should allow the study here is really what we're talking about, let's be honest, because you hold the majority of the votes and we all can count. So ultimately, you're holding the fate of this truth coming to light for Canadians in your vote today, because the Justice Committee will not revisit this. Multiple attempts from the opposition parties there to see that happen. And we're left with what other options? Other committees where Liberals have majorities, where you will continue to listen to, I think, very reasonable arguments that any reasonable Canadian can see a path forward on, and yet vote along your party lines in order to support your Prime Minister and keep the truth from Canadians. So I would like you to consider those things, because I really believe that all that we have at this point is this committee. And, you know, when you were like, Liberals have been out talking about parliamentary privilege, they can just stand up, they can just say this. If you really want them to be able to speak their truth, if you really want them to have a space, here it is. We're offering it to you. It's on a silver platter. We're saying, here's the space for something that you're telling Canadians that you want. You want them to be able to speak. You would like that to be able to happen. Here it is, all packaged up for you to say, yes, we also would like our colleagues to be able to have an opportunity to speak. And yes, we would like the truth for Canadians.
Thank you again, Ms. Ramsey. Next up, Mr. Poilievre.